Are you troubled by strange noises in the night?
Do you experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
Have you or any of your family ever seen a spook, specter, or ghost?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Pick up your phone and call the professionals.
Ghostbusters!
We're ready to believe you!
Ghostbusters, released in 1984, is one of Columbia Pictures' highest-grossing films ever, and became a cultural phenomenon in its own right. Directed by Ivan Reitman, it's the story of three parapsychologists, Ray Stantz, played by Dan Aykroyd, Egon Spengler, played by Harold Ramis, and Peter Venkman, played by Bill Murray. The trio are fired from their academic jobs and then start a private firm, Ghostbusters, and hire a colleague, Winston Zedmore, played by Ernie Hudson. After investigating a report from the apartment of Dana Barrett, played by Sigourney Weaver, the Ghostbusters realize that her building is being used to summon the ancient god, Gozer, an event that could bring on the end of the world. Gozer is a Sumerian shape-shifting god of destruction who gains entry to worlds via a ritual performed by two demigod minions. Gozer finally shows up, and the four Ghostbusters go to work. They combat a 112-foot Stay Puft Marshmallow Man before finally saving New York and the world. The hugely successful film was followed by Ghostbusters II in 1989. Director Reitman and the original cast return to combat another supernatural threat to the world. New York sewers are filling with pink slime, a sign of impending spiritual doom. The Ghostbusters determine that the spirit of a dead wizard, Vigo the Carpathian, is seeking to be reborn so that he can use sorcery to rule the world. For his reincarnation, Vigo targets the infant son of Dana Barrett. Aykroyd, Murray, Ramis, and Hudson are again called upon to save the day, which they do in comedic fashion, riding high atop an animated Statue of Liberty. The hugely popular franchise would give rise to an animated cartoon that ran for 140 episodes across 7 seasons, from September 13, 1986 to October 5, 1991. And there was breakfast cereal, computer games, merchandise, toys and accessories, soundtrack albums, comic books, not to mention a range of t-shirts. Stickers that were traded and swapped by school children everywhere, plus keychains, the Ecto-1, and literally anything else that could feature the iconic logo. After Ghostbusters 2, it was surely only a matter of time before we would see a Ghostbusters 3. In 1993, Aykroyd was promoting his movie Coneheads in an interview with Playboy magazine. He was asked, "Will you continue to make sequels, whether based on the Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters, Coneheads, or others?" Aykroyd replied, "As long as there's something new to do with them and it's enjoyable. It's kind of nice to have built-in franchises. The one I don't think will necessarily further exploit is Ghostbusters. It looks like that's about had its run." Because Ghostbusters 2 did poorly, he was asked. He answered, "Yeah, it opened, and Batman opened the next weekend and wiped us out that summer. Although we made a good movie, it just wasn't as commercially successful as everybody thought it would be. If I could get that team together, it would be a real dream, because I think there's a great story to be told, but it won't be for a while." In February 1994, Aykroyd spoke to WWOR Channel 9 News.
Raise your hands if you want another Ghostbusters movie. Dan says it could happen.
It might happen. I've got a story in mind that I'm thinking about. So we'll see. We'll see. It's certainly something I always wanted to do. It's just getting the other players together.
The following year, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel ran the headline, "Busters May Be Back," and quoted Ghostbusters co-writer and co-star Harold Ramis as saying that Aykroyd was writing a script featuring a whole new, younger, and probably much more handsome team. And he gave a strong hint that the completion of a trilogy would introduce Ghostbusters, the next generation. Other reports would surface during the tail end of 1996 and the start of 97, revealing that Aykroyd had plans for new potential cast members to join the team. At the Vancouver Province Showcase in September 1996, Aykroyd revealed, "I've completed one draft of the script, and Sony definitely wants to make the movie, and so do I. I would want to do it with Harold Ramis. We've been discussing it and are going back into meetings now. I can definitely see Chris Farley stepping into the cast. He'd make a great Ghostbuster, and so would Will Smith. I've already talked to Chris about the casting and have told him I'll be drafting the part for him." In regards to the inclusion rather than the non-inclusion of Bill Murray and director Ivan Reitman, Aykroyd said they want to concentrate on other things. Cinescape Online would closely follow any news on the project's development, printing a sourced rumor in March '98 that claimed the story would follow Raymond Stantz and Egon Spangler as they were learning to cope with Peter Venkman's departure alongside Dana Barrett. The duo would attempt to stay employed while fighting a new, otherworldly entity. IGN would confirm this as fact years later, and that Peter Venkman, who had died off-screen in unknown circumstances, would in fact return as a ghost in the final frames of the movie. Harold Ramis was allegedly set to direct from a story written by himself and Aykroyd. Aykroyd was said to be co-producing the film alongside Ivan Reitman, with Columbia Pictures bankrolling the cost of production. Their source said, Bill Murray does not want to return for sure. The screenplay will be written this summer, and so far the story will be set in New York and will be about Hades, who is the mythic god of the dead and king of the underworld, suddenly appearing in New York. The story was certain to feature a clash between our world and another dimension. 1 week later, an interview with Ivan Reitman would take place. The director was asked about a threequel and would say, "There is no Ghostbusters project for me that I am aware of. I know there's been a lot of talk about Ghostbusters 3, and I've talked to Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd about doing one. They seemed pretty interested in pursuing it. I sort of said I'd be happy to executive produce one, but I wasn't thinking of directing it. I think Harold was thinking about perhaps directing it, but I don't think anything has much happened on it lately." When asked if he would be interested in being involved in another sequel, Reitman answered, "Yeah, sure. I love those characters, and I love working with the particular actors. Dan Aykroyd came up with this great idea, and I enjoyed doing it, and I would enjoy doing it again, I guess." Dan Aykroyd told Hollywood Online in 1998 about the would-be idea, saying, "Harold Ramis and I have a treatment that we really like. It's just a matter of writing it now. We're going to try to do it this summer. The concept is still strong, and I think that Harold and I can pull it off, if we have the time. The concept is that there's a positive image of life and there's a negative image of life. Hell is not some distant place far away from this dimension or realm. Hell is right next door. It's like those old in-type photos where you turn them one way and they look positive, then you just flick them slightly and they look negative. That's our concept. Given the right technology, you could flip the switch and all of a sudden the positive that we see in this room suddenly becomes negative. It's kind of neat. We're going to set it in New York and do a Hades version of New York, very close to life in the city as we perceive it now. You look down at the river and there's a ferry of Wall Street commuters, except they're being shoved off with pitchforks into the river, which is now boiling blood. Flick it back, and it's just the Brooklyn Bridge and just a normal traffic jam. Carrying that through, I think we can have a lot of fun." As the story gathered speed, various rumors would circulate, including New York will begin to cross over into another world of the undead. Will Smith will sign to play a part in the new movie. Bill Murray will be featured in a minor cameo. And that Ernie Hudson wants to be in the sequel but hasn't been approached yet. Aykroyd would tell the Toronto Sun that he and Harold Ramis were nearly finished hammering out the film's story points and that they expected to have a script to present to Sony in a few months. The Sun also reported that if the film is given the green light, that there'd be a good chance that some of the film would be shot in Toronto. At this point, Sony president John Calley had already revealed to Variety magazine that jump-starting the studio's potential franchise flicks was the top priority heading into 1999. The studio's priority was Men in Black 2, alongside a slate that would feature The Mask of Zorro 2, Bad Boys 2, Jumanji 2, and Ghostbusters 3, as well as big-budget feature remakes of Charlie's Angels and Flash Gordon that were in development. In February of 1999, the Entertainment Weekly article, Who You Gonna Cast?, quoted Ramis as saying, "Dan and I talk about it on a regular basis, and he's done some writing. The studio would love to make a deal, but they're not sure who to make the deal with, since Bill is very elusive and Ivan Reitman is kind of standing on the side. The dream plan is that Dan and I would produce it, I would direct it, and we would recruit some newer, younger, popular Ghostbusters to star." Ramis a month earlier had told various media outlets that harder than getting the script would be for Columbia to figure out a way to pay us all, and would say that the script was more of a hobby for Aykroyd rather than an actual commissioned work, and that his Egon character, alongside Ray, would more than likely only have brief roles in which they were just passing the torch to some younger, slimmer guys. Shortly after, Ramis would tell Popcorn UK that the story would involve Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd and himself coming out of retirement to teach a new, younger group of Ghostbusters. Prompted into action when a wave of poltergeist activity plagues New York after hell declares no vacancies starting from the 21st century. Ramis also said that Hollywood's hottest young stars are going to be approached. In March of '99, we'd get more specific details on a potential plot, as IGN would report that Aykroyd had written a 122-page first draft for a third Ghostbusters film titled Ghostbusters III: Hell-Bent. Co-written with Tom Davis from SNL, the screenplay would see the Ghostbusters heading to hell, specifically Manhattan, which was a play on the word Manhattan. Hell is literally evicting people back into the world of the living in order to alleviate their congestion problem. The story would introduce a new generation of Ghostbusters, including Frankie, a body-pierced, tough New Jersey punker; Lovell, a dreadlock dude; Moira, a pretty but uptight gymnast and science graduate; and Carla, a Latino beauty. Helping the new crew would be Nathaniel, a prepubescent genius whose powerful brain has made his head abnormally large. Peter Venkman would cameo at the end of the script, and there was no sign of Sigourney Weaver's character Dana, nor is there any mention of her kid Oscar. It was reported that the characters of Ray, Egon, and Winston, now referred to as Dr. Zedmore, had prominent supporting roles. The action, however, was all driven forward by the younger Ghostbusters. As Hell-Bent remained unproduced, the script would then be the subject in question once again, when Aykroyd appeared on the television show Access Hollywood on the 12th of November, 1999.
Blues brother Dan Aykroyd has got a new film with Kirk Douglas. It is called Diamond. But when I sat down with the star, I found out his old movie, Jim, Ghostbusters, is the one that has got him taking aim at Hollywood.
Doesn't look good right now, I'm sorry to say that.
It's Dan Aykroyd's spirited battle with Sony Pictures over Ghostbusters Part 3.
Get her!
How could they not possibly want to do it when...
They're trying to get bargains, they're trying to get the next Blair Witch. But, you know, sometimes you have to seed for the big harvest to come in.
Aykroyd insists it would cost $120 million to make a Ghostbusters sequel. This for a mega successful franchise that has brought in a reported $1.5 billion worldwide. The original was just released on DVD.
You're talking about billion-dollar releases. Spend 120, make 500. They don't see it that way.
Kind of angry that they're not going to make it.
No, I'm not angry
Or that
at all. I'm
or
just
very
resigned.
passionate about it.
I'm passionate, and I'm sorry that I have to leave a lot, because I like it there.
Aykroyd revealed he's so incensed, he's ending his 10-year business relationship with the studio, even vacating his office on the lot. And frustrating him further, that a sequel won't even be produced by a rival Hollywood studio. Sony owns the rights, and he says they are not selling.
It's Ghostbusters 3, the new guys. It's a whole new crop. It's not like we're going to saddle the audience with me and Harold and Billy again. We're going to make a whole new movie with a whole new plot and whole new characters.
Oh.
In 2001, Sigourney Weaver was asked about the prospect of reprising the character of Dana Barrett. She told Empire magazine that, "That's highly unlikely. I think our bustin' days are long gone. We'd be a very sorry bunch of very old Ghostbusters now." In November 2002, during the press tour for Harold Ramis's movie Analyze That, Ramis would tell reporters that, "We played around with it, but this one I can't see." Ramis would also say, "I wrote a draft though. We had a pretty good idea. Ghostbusters Go to Hell. But the deal couldn't be made. We thought we'd introduce new Ghostbusters and appear as the mentors of the new Ghostbusters, or not appear in it at all. Bill Murray wouldn't appear in it. I think he didn't want to see a sequel made, so he became kind of obstructionist about it. It could have been 3 new Ghostbusters without any of us, and the story Dan Aykroyd and I were evolving could have worked." In 2003, the Ghostbusters Hell-Bent screenplay was leaked, and details were revealed online in a report that stated, "After all these years, Ray Stantz has made Ghostbusters a full-blown corporation, with dozens of employees, including mechanics to look after the fleet of converted ambulances. One scene echoes the shot of Ecto-1 driving across the Brooklyn Bridge, only this time there's a whole line. They've also built themselves the Ecto-50, a converted truck with its own containment unit. Winston Zedmore is now also a doctor of parapsychology and would be referred to as Dr. Zedmore throughout, and Peter Venkman was absent for most of the movie. This being down, it was assumed, to the fact Murray remained hard to find and easy to lose. Harold Ramis would speak to In Focus magazine about the previously went-nowhere Aykroyd script and the Ghostbusters in Hell plotline, and how they were keen to get the project restarted. He also stated that they had previously wanted actor Ben Stiller to join himself, Aykroyd, and Rick Moranis in that sequel. What Danny had originally conceived was sending us to a special effects hell, a netherworld full of phenomenal visual environments and boiling pits. But what works so well about the first two is the mundaneness of it all. So my notion was that hell exists in the same place as our conscious reality. But it's like a film shutter. It's the darkness between the 24 frames. So we create a vice to do it, and it's in a warehouse in Brooklyn. When we step out of the chamber, it looks just like New York, but it's hell. Everything's gridlocked, no cars are moving, and all the drivers are swearing at each other in different foreign languages. No two people speak the same language. It's all the worst things about modern urban life, just magnified. In February 2007, Aykroyd would appear on radio and say, "I wrote a script called Hell-Bent. Ghostbusters go to hell, basically. The premise is that it's Manhattan. There's Manhattan and Manhattan. And if you can build an interdimensional phase system so that you can go from one dimension to another. We've succeeded doing that, and we go to the hell side. Central Park is this huge, deep mine, green demons there, surrounded by black onyx 1,000-foot-high apartment buildings with classic red devils, very wealthy, and we go visit a Donald Trump-like character, Mr. Sifler, Lou Sifler, Lucifer. So I will say we meet the devil in it." As for Bill Murray, Aykroyd would say that the project will be CGI because Murray won't do live action, and CGI effects would be cheaper to produce.
Well, there's some Ghostbusters hysteria over there. There's someone carrying around a giant, like a very large doll of a marshmallow man. So it comes up a lot. It comes up a lot, the idea of doing another Ghostbusters, and we'll see. There's another script in process, and we'll see if it's good. It's got to be really good, though, because the first one was so great. Brilliant.
Sigourney Weaver would also rule out the possibility of herself appearing in any Part 3 during promotion of Avatar. Variety would break the story that Columbia were making new plans to resurrect the title, employing the Emmy-nominated writing team of Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupinitsky to write an all-new screenplay. The duo had co-executive produced the U.S. version of The Office and also scripted Harold Ramis's recent comedy, Year One. The report stated that the new script will be designed to bring back together the original cast of Harold Ramis, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson, but that no deals will be made with the original cast until the script is ready. But the gross percentage will certainly be an issue. Sony has a standing policy not to allow more than 25% of first dollar gross out the door. Ramis would clarify the rumors to the Chicago Tribune, saying that Columbia is developing a script for Ghostbusters 3 with my Year One writing partners, Gene Stupinitsky and Lee Eisenberg. Aykroyd, Ivan Reitman, and I are consulting at this point, and according to Dan, Bill Murray is willing to be involved on some level. A year earlier, in 2006, Slovenian video game developer Zootfly began working on a series of speculative Ghostbusters game demos, even though it didn't officially possess the rights to do so. When the company released videos of the game to their YouTube channel, the footage was greeted with excitement and a viral buzz. And yet, because Zootfly didn't have the rights, Sony had the videos copyright claimed and removed from YouTube. Sony and Vivendi Games began working on an official Ghostbusters video game. Following a merger, Vivendi would drop out, and the property was picked up by Atari's parent company and was finally released in June 2009 to great reviews. All 4 original Ghostbusters, including the elusive Bill Murray, would lend their likenesses and voice talents to the game. Aykroyd and Ramis would receive a written-by credit based on their consultation to the project. Ramis would tell the New York Times that they were happy to have their involvement at all. The crassest way I can put it is that they couldn't have paid us enough to give it the time and attention required to make it as funny as a feature film. An official release went worldwide on November 16, 2007, where Sierra Entertainment and Sony Pictures jointly announced development of Ghostbusters, the video game. The game would feature the original film cast from Columbia Pictures' classic Ghostbusters films: Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson, back again for the first time in more than 20 years. Described as equipped with a variety of unique weapons and gadgets, players will hunt, fight and capture a wide range of supernatural villains in a funny and frightening battle to save New York City from its latest paranormal plague. Ghostbusters is one of Sony Pictures' most beloved film franchises, says Mark Kaplan, Vice President of Licensing for Sony Pictures Consumer Products. As for the storyline to the game, which incorporates some of the international aspects of Aykroyd's script, they said, when Manhattan is once again overrun by ghosts and other supernatural creatures, players will take on the role of a new recruit joining the famous Ghostbusters team. The game was a huge success, and is very often referred to by fans as the official Ghostbusters 3 we never got. In September 2008, prior to the release of the video game, Bill Murray would speak at a screening of his film, City of Ember, where he had some words of wisdom for the new scriptwriters.
Well, I think the wounds from Ghostbusters 2 have healed. And supposedly they've hired 2 guys from the office to write a script. So that could work. I think that's a good idea to get a fresh look at it. I mean, I always like the characters. Characters are funny. And we did have a lot of fun making the movie. The first one was really a lot of fun to make. And I really, I think the first 45 minutes of Ghostbusters, or 40 minutes, is about as funny as the movie gets. And it didn't have a lot of special effects in it. It was just a couple. It was just the funny characters in that world, and I liked that movie because of it. I think the first movie had something like 60, plate shots or something like that. The second one had hundreds. The specials guys got their hands on the script early, and it was just gone. It went away. The script went away. And it was hard to wrangle because it was, it was tied all around the effects without the story coming first or the characters moving through it. So, they're hard movies to write. And Dan really caught it with that first one. I mean, he really caught it. It was fun. Characters are fun to do. We did the video game this summer, and it was fun to do it again. I found myself walking down Fifth Avenue singing the song.
Actor Seth Rogen's name had been rumored to be attached to the new production. When asked about it by Collider, Rogen said, "It's hard to imagine that would be good, isn't it? I mean, just as a movie fan, I'm the first guy to be skeptical of that. It sounds like a terrible idea when you first hear it. At first hearing, it sounds like the worst idea ever. I don't know, maybe. I mean, that would have to be one good script." Ramis would also address online rumors that Seth Rogen and other Judd Apatow collaborators, like Steve Carell and Jonah Hill, were joining the new cast. Ramis said, "Judd Apatow is co-producing Year One, and has made several other films for Sony. So of course the studio is hoping to tap into some of that same acting talent. The concept is that the old Ghostbusters would appear in the film in some mentor capacity."
And I guess that's a reward for having created these cultural icons. So, you could reap the reward. We could do anything and, we'd all make some money probably, but no one wants to do that. We don't need the work. We don't need to do it. The public, if they only had 2 Ghostbusters, we'd all be fine. The world would not end. And, but, if we're going to do it, it's impossible to say, we want to be better than the first one. Who knows? You do your best work. You try to bring fresh thoughts to it. Look at it in a new context. But I doubt it's not going to be like the rebooting of Batman. We're not going to be wearing sculpted suits with pecs and abs built into it and stuff. We're not going to get like super high tech. I don't think that's not what made Ghostbusters funny. In fact, what made Ghostbusters funny was kind of the low-tech aspect of it. So, for us, it's always going to be about character, and then secondarily, it's going to be about the pseudoscience of it. The made-up gadgets and the fake mythology. And if there's a message that underlies the whole thing, I want to believe in that message and feel like we're saying something useful to the audience.
Sony disagreed. "It's not true," Doug Belgrad, president of Columbia Pictures, would tell the Los Angeles Times. "We have some great new writers working on a new script, but Judd isn't involved. Judging from the frenzy on the internet, there still seems to be plenty of interest in the idea of doing another film, so we're certainly taking that as a good sign. Aykroyd was asked about the new Ghostbusters III during a web chat with readers of the Boston Globe in February '09, and he replied, "Script is commenced early summer. Hope to be in production by late fall 2009. Aykroyd seemed to now have a renewed enthusiasm for the third part and would tell MTV about the plot, saying that there will be a whole new generation that has to be trained, and that whole new generation will be led by an individual who you'll all love when you meet him. But I'm not going to tell you anything yet. There'll be lots of cadets, boys and girls, who'll be learning how to use the cyclotron, the accelerators and all the new stuff, the neuron splitter, which is going to be the interplanar, interceptor, and all these great tools that they're going to have to flip from dimension to dimension." Promoting the movie Get Low, Murray was again asked about his Peter Venkman character, and the actor now seemed visibly irritated by having to continually address the topic. He said, "It's just a myth. It's like the white alligator in the sewer, you know? Who's seen it, really? It's just really the movie studio. They love the franchise. They just like to recreate it again. All this talk is just talk. It drives me nuts. It's just people talking. And now it's like, on the street, people go, hey, 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 you know? Why don't you go back to high school? Quit bothering me." Until someone actually creates a great script, it's just hogwash. It doesn't mean anything. It's interesting that people are interested in it. They'd like to see it. It was a great thing. It really was fun. Maybe it should. And if it's such a good idea, then someone will write the screenplay. Bill Murray was asked again during his 2010 Letterman appearance.
And there was a Ghostbusters 2, wasn't there?
Technically, yes.
Yeah. Now, and I keep hearing talk about a Ghostbusters 3, but you...
It's a nightmare. Yeah, this is my nightmare.
Really? Now, will you be in Ghostbusters 3?
I told them if they killed me off in the first reel, I'd do it.
Right.
So now they've figured out a way to kill me off in the first reel. But I don't think... it's just crazy talk. It's just...
Well, that'd be a huge hit.
These are the people that are up all night, you know, that are talking this.
Now, do you no, and you did the video game. The video game
was kind of
wildly successful.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and you record all of the stuff? Is that what happened?
record all the stuff.
Yeah, and how long does that take to record all of these?
It only took a couple of days. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, and did you read it all and then it sticks in your head and you got it with you when you're, you know, recording the stuff? You know what I mean?
You have no idea what we do, do you?
I have no idea. No, I don't know how it works.
An unsubstantiated rumor would then do the rounds, stating that Oscar, Dana Barrett's son from Part 2, would be the lead character in the third film, and it would be revealed that he is the love child of Dana and Peter Venkman. The source also said that all 4 Ghostbusters were officially signed on, and that Rick Moranis would come out of retirement for the film, though there is no timetable just yet. In 2010, Ernie Hudson would tell the website Big Shiny Robot that, "Over the past year or so, I've talked to the main players. I've talked to Sigourney Weaver. I've talked to Bill, Danny, Harold, and Ivan Reitman. Everybody is like, yeah, we want to do it, but..." And that's the but. Getting everyone to agree with what needs to be done. I think Bill especially wants to make something exceptional. What that means to him may be different to what it means to Ivan Reitman or Danny Aykroyd. I know everybody wants to do it, but getting them to agree on a script is the key. For me, I think if we just get a script together, so much of it happened on the moment of the set that it'll be fine. But that's just my opinion. I'm the last guy that has any input, but I'd love to see it happen. Bill Murray, however, remained unwilling to play ball, or so it seemed. Making reference to the commercial failure of Ramus's Year One, he would tell Esquire magazine that, "It's all a bunch of crock. It's a crock. There was a story, and I gotta be careful here. I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. When I hurt someone's feelings, I really want to hurt them." Harold Ramis said, "Oh, I've got these guys. They write on The Office, and they're really funny. They're going to write the next Ghostbusters." They had just written this movie that he had directed. Well, I never went to see Year One, but people who did, including other Ghostbusters, said it was one of the worst things that they had ever seen in their lives. So that dream just vaporized. That was gone. But it's the studio that really wants this thing. It's a franchise. It's a franchise, and they made a whole lot of money on Ghostbusters. Aykroyd would respond to Murray's critique of the situation, defending the work when he said, "I think he was concerned that the writing on Ghostbusters 3 by these guys would not be up to standard, but I can tell you firsthand, I'm working on the script now, and those two, Stupinitsky and Eisenberg wrote Bill a comic role of a lifetime, and the new Ghostbusters and the old are all well represented in it. We have a strong first draft that Harold and I will take back, and I'm very excited about working on it.
Question everyone always wants to know, and when I said I was going to do this interview, everyone wanted to know, Ghostbusters 3. I'm sure you've been asked a bazillion times about it. Where does that sit? Is there really any such project?
We have 2 writers hired by Sony right now writing it, and all I can say...
So there really is one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, nothing's a reality until we see what their draft looks like and what they come up with.
Yeah.
So nothing's going to happen unless we come up with a draft that works and that they... Harold and I have to like it, and obviously Ivan has to like it, and Billy's got to like it. So, but I liked the concept that they told me, and the story concept seems okay, and we'll see what happens.
Aykroyd would speak on the fate of his character Ray Stantz, adding, "My character's eyesight is shot. I got a bad knee, a bad hip. I can't drive that caddy anymore or lift the cyclotron accelerator anymore. It's too heavy. We need young legs, new minds, new Ghostbusters. So I'm in essence passing the torch to the new regime. And you know what? That's totally okay with me." Sigourney Weaver would confirm to Vanity Fair that she wanted her character's adult son to become a Ghostbuster in the sequel, and that Ivan Reitman had confirmed to her that this indeed was a definite choice the writers were looking to make. In an interview with Esquire in 2012, Dan Aykroyd said that, had Bill Murray signed on to the script written by Stupinitsky and Eisenberg 2 years earlier, the movie would be out that summer, and it would be a massive hit. He said, if Billy had said yes, it would have satisfied his performance and what he wanted in the movie. It would have satisfied his performing skill and how he wanted to be depicted in the movie. It would have satisfied the studio, the writers who wrote it, everybody. Ivan, me, Harold, we were all happy with it. The stars still hope the project didn't hinge solely on Murray's committal, saying, "Yes, we will be doing the movie, and hopefully with Mr. Murray. That is our hope. We have an excellent script. What we have to remember is that Ghostbusters is bigger than any one component, although Billy was absolutely the lead and contributed to it in a massive way."
Well, moving on to Ghostbusters 3, which I'm sure you're probably sick of talking about now, but what's the status with that? Where are we at with Ghostbusters 3? Is it actually going to happen?
Oh yeah, it'll happen, yeah. We're just perfecting the script, and we're going to hand it to a new generation. Think what they did with Star Trek, that's the way it's going to be. Right. So it's not going to be like the first 2 movies. You won't see the same people.
Right.
Just prepare yourself for all new cast,
right.
All new situation, new physics, new situation completely.
Okay. And in terms of the original cast, can we expect to see some or all of you guys back for a part?
Some.
Some? Does that mean everyone but Bill Murray?
I can only say some, and Billy is always welcome.
Yeah.
Always welcome. We would love to have him walk through the door, and I'd love to have everybody from the first movie in it. We'll see what happens.
See what happens, yeah. So currently Bill doesn't want to be involved in it, does he?
He said not, and I understand he's done the role twice. He's moving on to other things. He owns FDR now. He could do that on stage. He's working with young directors who are in the forefront of cinema. He's a terrific dramatic actor, and I can see why he would not want to reprise the role. And look, I'm his friend first before I'm a colleague. Yeah. And whatever he decides to do is fine with me. We have a friendship that will survive everything. I love the guy, and if he wants to join us at the last minute, we'll make a hole for him. Okay. But right now, he's moving on. That's fine.
Yeah. Is it true that one of the first Ghostbusters 3 scripts that isn't going to be used now, he was actually going to play a ghost? Because I believe that Sigourney Weaver maybe let that slip that he was going to be returning as a ghost.
Oh, I wrote a part for him. It was, it was one of the greatest parts ever written for an actor.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to do it. So.
Okay,
but it was great, just great, and it was funny and poignant, and we would have only had to work a half day.
Yeah.
But it had a lot of impact. I'm sorry we didn't get him for that.
Yeah.
That is a disappointment.
That is a shame. Yeah, absolutely.
On 24th February 2014, the much-loved and respected actor, writer, director Harold Ramis, Ghostbusters' own Egon Spengler, would unexpectedly pass away at the age of 69.
One of Hollywood's most successful filmmakers has died. Harold Ramis starred in several comedy classics. He also wrote and directed some of Hollywood's funniest films. But he got his start with SCTV. And as Francis Silvaggio reports, Ramis collaborated with so many Canadians, he had a special connection with his country.
Hi, Whitey.
Oh, hi, Beaver.
He's a Canadian icon who actually isn't even Canadian. Harold Ramis was born in Chicago, but his career came to life on Canada's SCTV.
Beaver, no one would have to know that you did it.
He also had this sort of deadpan, almost modest side to him that I think seemed very Canadian in a way, even though he wasn't Canadian.
I think this building should be condemned.
The rest of the world knows Ramis best as Dr. Egon Spengler from the comedy blockbuster Ghostbuster, a movie he not only starred in, but co-wrote with his co-star Dan Aykroyd.
Wow, this place is great!
In a statement, Aykroyd says he was deeply saddened to hear of the passing of my brilliant, gifted, funny friend, co-writer, performer, and teacher Harold Ramis. May he now get the answers he was always seeking.
I can't believe we're doing this.
Ramis may be best publicly recognized for his on-screen work, but he was also one of the quiet creative geniuses behind such comedy classics as Animal House and Caddyshack.
Don't sell yourself short, Judge. You're a tremendous slouch.
When I turn in a script, I'm not even sure if it's professional. I mean, I'm afraid people are going to read it and go, geez, you know, what makes this guy think he can write? This is so amateurish.
But industry peers say Ramis was anything but amateur. Director Ivan Reitman says the world has lost a wonderful, truly original comedy voice with the passing of Harold Ramis. He possessed the most agile mind I've ever witnessed. He always had the clearest sense of what was funny and how to create something in a new, clever way.
Something terrible is about to enter our world, and this building is obviously the door.
Ramis's on- and off-screen credits are long and impressive. A brilliant comedic voice silenced at 69.
In the immediate aftermath, as reported by The Hollywood Reporter, the Ghostbusters 3 script by Eisenberg and Stupinitsky would now need to be revamped. A Project Insider was quoted as saying, "There will be some repercussions." A studio source would say that Ramis's involvement in Ghostbusters 3 was only minimal, and that he was always great to bounce something off, and that will certainly be missed, but it won't affect the script.
I've spoken to a lot of writers, and they have a lot of unproduced scripts. Mm-hmm. Do you have a desk filled of unproduced scripts, or not really?
Everything we ever write is gone. No, I'm just kidding.
I wouldn't say a desk, but the most, we have definitely several.
There's definitely scripts. There's probably a stack of scripts and then a gigantic stack of ideas.
Yeah.
Got it.
Half-baked ideas.
What is
three different versions of Ghostbusters 3 that are just sitting there.
I was gonna keep. I was gonna say, what's the one script you have that if you could get the green light on it, you would want to make it tomorrow? That's unproduced.
I mean, I do think some of the Ghostbuster scripts we wrote were pretty strong. It would be very difficult with Harold having passed and that sort of thing.
Ramis, as co-writer of the first two movies, had held a first dollar gross stake in the third film, along with Reitman, Aykroyd, and Murray, a position that would now revert to his estate. But no deals had yet been signed, and it was said that the principals instead would take break-even cuts in order to get the film off the ground. The project would, however, soon move into the hands of a new writer, as Men in Black 3 screenwriter Atorn Cohen was brought in to do a major rewrite. Aykroyd would say, "We've got a new writing staff working on it now. It's going to be perfect." That's the whole thing. There's no point in doing it unless it's perfect. So that's what we're up to now.
So you'd mentioned earlier about you trying to get Bill Murray to call you back on the other thing. Are you talking about the Ghostbusters 3?
Yeah, Ghostbusters 3. You know, I love him. Well, I'm going to look at some of the pages here coming up the next couple of weeks. Got a good, hot young writer on it. He wrote Men in Black 3 and Atorn Cohen, and he seems to be on the case there. And we'll see.
Is everybody involved from the original crew?
You know, I really don't know what I'm going to see there. I just know that Billy's expressed, you know, an interest in you know, perhaps looking at something, but it's hard to say with Murray. You know, the Hurricane is an unpredictable. Well, look, there'll always be a place for him if he decides to come. But so far, he says that he's already done the role twice, and he wants to move on. I mean, you know, he's doing prestigious work as an actor, you know. Yeah.
During an interview with Vanity Fair, Cohen would say that he and Reitman were together for hours every week, working on it really closely. He said that Dan Aykroyd is acting as an overseer to the script, saying no one can speak the language of Ghostbusters like he can. When asked whether a Ghostbusters 3 could succeed without Bill Murray, Cohen answered, "Absolutely everyone wants Bill Murray, but everyone has great faith in the franchise." Rick Moranis, who hadn't been in a movie in nearly 2 decades, would talk of being approached by a producer for the project. He said, "I don't say no to anything until everything is presented to me. What is it? Is it happening? Is there a script? What's the part? Who else is in it? Where is it? How long is it going to take? You know, I need a little bit more information." An email leaked during the infamous WikiLeaks, dated December 2013, from then-director Ivan Reitman to Sony staff, would speak of the Cohen draft, that it was titled Ghostbusters, Alive Again. A casting wish list was attached, and Reitman said he had met with various actors, including Jonah Hill, Zach Galifianakis, Brie Larson, Anne Hathaway, Adam Pally, and Charlie Day. Also, there was Jesse Eisenberg, Rebel Wilson, Sacha Baron Cohen, Aziz Ansari, and Aubrey Plaza. Character breakdowns would include 2 young men who will be aged 23 to 29. Jeremy is the young leader. Chris is said to be the son of Peter Venkman. There is a female lead by the name of Dr. Anna, who is said to be a few years older and is a real doctor. The 4th lead is an older male named Ian. The same slew of emails would also reveal several plot details regarding Cohen's draft. As reported and summarized by Ghostbusters 3 Blogspot, we learn that the movie opens with Anna. Many of the central characters do not know each other. Chris is a shining academic and has an experimental machine that is responsible for bringing about potential paranormal calamity. The machine is being funded by an org or person named Parsons. Friend Jeremy pursued a worthless degree he didn't believe in, but may just be the expert Chris needs for help. Chris goes to the firehouse to seek the old Ghostbusters crew. Egon and Ray are dead in this script. Ray's ghost possesses newcomer Chris early on. At least one other Ghostbuster is still alive, though it is unclear who that is. Dean is the son of Ray, who creates legal waivers and ignores cease and desist letters. The sky bulges and something tries to push through. Chris is possessed in a restaurant and cannot move of his own free will. Anna is visited by a ghost at an operating room. The plot point involving Hellion, with ghosts going into and emerging from mouths of humans and animals. Venkman was given a brief mention. There was a scene at the famed toy store FAO Schwartz, about which Sony bosses would say, "We can do better," and they were unhappy about references to the Smurfs movie. In the toy store scene, ghosts brought toys to life. Sony's executive team noted that it would be better to see ghosts than to have them possess items. Stay Puft returns in this script. The Ghostbusters are forced to cross streams. Sony staff, however, were weary about the Marshmallow Man's return. It was reported that the Lego movie directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, were in talks to replace Reitman. Lord and Miller would decline the studio's offer, later citing burnout and wanting to take a break from feature films. There was then a report that Zombieland director Ruben Fleischer was going to direct the movie. The email leaks would also confirm that the studio were in fact looking to meet with Fleischer. Around this time, comic book artist Tristan Jones would reveal a single piece of concept art from pre-visualization work on a previous incantation of Ghostbusters 3. A shot taken from what would have been a ghost montage. In June 2014, John Landis' son, Max Landis, tweeted his concept for a Ghostbusters sequel that also functions as a meta-riff on film sequels. Landis would later say, "Before Feig stepped in on it, I was in the finals to write that movie. I had a meeting scheduled with Ivan Reitman that got canceled because Feig had walked in and said, 'All women.' My lead of my Ghostbusters is a woman, is Egon's daughter, and one woman wasn't enough." Landis' pitch was revealed to be as such. We start in the 1920s, where we witness cult leader Ivo Shandor proclaim the prophecy of the 2 comings of Gozer, one a failure, and the second 30 years later to destroy the world. One of his followers speaks out and is killed for his insubordination, becoming the spirit who is eventually known to us as Slimer. Slam to 2016. Ghostbusters was a national franchise, privately owned and government subsidized. But the lack of extra-dimensional invaders meant that there was ultimately a very limited amount of ghosts to bust, and the very optimistic national expansion slowly depleted their funds, As in, did the Atlanta chapter really need a helicopter? The Ghostbusters remain iconic, but despite the merchandise, cartoon show, etc., the company itself is bankrupt, on the verge of collapse. Only 2 houses remain open. There hasn't been a legitimate call in more than 10 years. The original Busters are for the most part long gone. Venkman took the money and disappeared into seclusion. Winston Zeddemore quit the Busters in 1991 and has since become a Richard Branson-style billionaire. And Egon Spengler accidentally ascended to a higher plane of existence, leaving only the increasingly delusional Ray Stantz, who has run the company into the ground. The Sony emails had revealed that some members of staff at Sony were excited about Landis's pitch, especially his backstory for Slimer. However, Landis's work would amount to nothing more than well-polished fan fiction, as less than 6 months later, a new rumor would emerge that did seem to carry some weight. It was reported by Hollywood sources that Paul Feig was reportedly the new frontrunner to direct a rebooted Ghostbusters 3, which would now instead focus on a female team of Ghostbusters. Insiders told The Hollywood Reporter that the director of Bridesmaids is Sony's favored choice to film the sequel, and that Paul was very interested in the project. There was also an alternative to the Paul Feig reboot brewing, as Deadline reported that Sony Pictures was looking to broaden the Ghostbusters franchise and form Ghostcorps, a new production company whose principals included original Ghostbusters architects Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd. They would establish offices at Sony with the mission to scare up branding opportunities based on the 1984 comedy classic and to establish Peter Venkman, Winston Zeddemore, Egon Spengler, and Ray Stantz in various entertainment mediums. Captain America: The Winter Soldier directors Joe and Anthony Russo, who had just made a first-look Sony deal, were looking to direct and produce the movie. Drew Pearce, known for his work on Iron Man 3 and Mission Impossible 5, would write the screenplay. Channing Tatum and his partners Reed Carolin and Peter Kernan were attached to produce. The hope was for Tatum to play one of the Ghostbusters in the film. The idea came from Pearce, who honed in the Russo brothers, Tatum's team, and Reitman. This was being assembled even as the studio moved to the start line with the Ghostbusters reboot that would be directed by Feig and star his Bridesmaids leads Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, plus Saturday Night Live stars Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon.
Because I got so excited when they were rebooting it with a female cast, but then I heard there's also one with Channing Tatum.
He's got a great idea. His writers have a fantastic idea for
Okay.
it.
You don't think it's going to steal the thunder from the fact that there's a female one?
Well, the female one will come out next, and then hopefully maybe
There'll be
their
another
story
one.
Yeah, but completely
What's
different.
the idea?
I can't say.
Can you give us a hint?
Is
that's a
it
billion-dollar
something
industrial
like
secret that I will not divulge. But the story is
Ghostbusters
so
meets
good.
21, 22, 23 Jump Street something?
It's more into sort of more mythology and spirituality, and it's good. It's good. And then there's another idea from the guys who did the Lego movie.
Oh, I love those guys.
Drew Pearce confirmed he'd written a draft set in the same universe as the all-female reboot, and that his script was written with Tatum and Chris Pratt in mind. He said the plot would remain top secret. Reitman confirmed these early branding plans to Deadline and said that this was something he and Aykroyd had long discussed. Reitman said, "We want to expand the Ghostbusters universe in ways that will include different films, TV shows, merchandise, all things that are part of modern filmed entertainment. This is a branded entertainment, a scary supernatural premise mixed with comedy. Paul Feig's films will be the first version of that, shooting in June to come out in July 2016. He's got 4 of the funniest women in the world, and there will be other surprises to come. The second film has a wonderful idea that builds on that. Drew will start writing, and the hope is to be ready for the Russo brothers' next window next summer to shoot, with the movie coming out the following year. It's just the beginning of what I hope will be a lot of wonderful movies. My primary focus will be to build the Ghostbusters into a universe it always promised it might become. The original film is beloved, as is the cast, and we hope to create films we will continue to love." Paul Feig's 2016 all-female reboot, simply titled Ghostbusters and marketed as Ghostbusters: Answer the Call, would premiere on July 9th, 2016. The reboot didn't do as well as Sony had hoped. Critics of the project felt that the gender swap was nothing more than a gimmick, whereas other quarters felt that the new version's message was one of female empowerment that aimed to attract a new generation of younger fans. The division of opinion quickly turned into a debate on identity politics, with all manner of accusations being thrown around in the movie press and on social media. As many shared their opinion, the topic began to trend as #NotMyGhostbusters. People who disliked the trailer and end product were accused of bigotry and sexism. But once the dust settled and the shelf life of the hysteria expired, it seemed that people disliked the movie simply because they deemed it as not a very good film. The lower than anticipated box office gross would see all plans for an intended sequel come to an end. Plans for the ambitious parallel project would also seem to disintegrate, as Channing Tatum's producer would say the project was too complicated. Bill Murray, promoting his movie St. Vincent, would say of the previous attempts for Ghostbusters 3 that the studio gets really crazy about it. What they really want to do is resurrect a franchise. The first one was a spectacular movie, one of the greatest movies. The second one it had some moves. It had a few good scenes in it. I read one that Danny wrote that was crazy bizarre and too crazy to comprehend. And of the script where his character died and returned as a ghost, he said, it was kind of funny, but not well executed. Good news was then announced that Jason Reitman, son of Ivan, would be directing a Ghostbusters sequel that would hand the movie back to the fans. A teaser trailer would soon follow. The sci-fi comedy was said to be a huge priority for the studio, where it had been secretly developed using the codename Rust City. One of the first major casting decisions announced would be the talented and likable actor Paul Rudd. Ernie Hudson would also confirm his involvement. During filming, Vanity Fair would do an on-set exclusive and reveal that the film focuses primarily on a family we haven't met before, single mom Callie and her 2 kids, Trevor and Phoebe, who move into a beaten-down farmhouse in Oklahoma, only to discover that there's something strange in the neighborhood. Unexplained quakes shake the town. There's an old mine nearby that bears the name of Ivo Shandor, who built the Manhattan high-rise in the 1984 film that channeled the forces of evil. The aforementioned Paul Rudd co-stars as a local teacher who's been documenting the unexplained phenomena, befriending Callie and her kids and helping them make the connection between the current weirdness and the events of 3 decades before. The new movie picks up 36 years after the marshmallow-drenched near-apocalypse that's known in Ghostbuster lore as the Manhattan Cross-Rip. Jason Reitman would say, "Before I ever thought I could make a Ghostbusters film, the image of a 12-year-old girl carrying a proton pack popped into my head and just wouldn't leave. Eventually, I knew who she was. I'm floored by the idea of what it would be like to find a proton pack in your grandparents' basement. What would that discovery reveal about who you are and what adventures you're about to go on? If I think about who I'm making this movie for, it's my father. We all know what it's like to be told stories by our parents. I'm really honored to get a chance to tell one back to him from the world he brought to life." Aykroyd would say, Jason Reitman wrote a beautiful, heartfelt script that takes the real DNA from the first 2 movies and transfers that directly to the third, the next generation. It hands the legacy off to a new generation of stars and players and actors and characters. Murray would speak to Vanity Fair about his choice to take part in the absence of Egon Spengler. "Well, we are a man down. That's the deal, and that's the story we're telling. That's the story they've written. The script is good. It's got lots of emotion in it. It's got lots of family in it, with through lines that are really interesting. It's gonna work." Ghostbusters Afterlife is scheduled to be released in the United States on November 11, 2021, after being delayed 3 times from an original July 2020 date due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The film will be released in 3D. And so there we have it. A tale of canceled scripts, abandoned ideas, and failed pitches, which, unlike most of the tales woven on this channel, actually ends on a positive note. I have a feeling the latest chapter in the Ghostbusters universe will be something truly great, and I, like millions of others, can't wait to see it. Thanks for watching.